Welcome to Dolphin Tank, a session empowering the change makers of today. Five extraordinary ink fellows take center stage, presenting their world-shifting ideas. Four powerful dolphins stand ready to challenge, champion, and catapult their visions to the next level. Can they make a splash? Let's find out in Dolphin Tank, powered by Ink Global Foundation.
Whenever we think about factories, we tend to think about hot, humid, really dusty places, which most of them are. But in reality, modern day factories are engineering marvels where the best of humanity, sciences, management, and art sort of converge to squeeze the maximum value out of the natural resources that we can. And these factories are run by humans where they need to take decisions on an hourly, daily, weekly, monthly basis. But when they're taking these decisions, they are limited by their own human limitations around one, how much can they really observe? And second, how much can they really analyze to take that most efficient decision? If we talk about the state of manufacturing in India and globally, we are looking at more than 2 lakh manufacturing setups out there where a median productivity or effectiveness is 40%. What that means, if we can theoretically produce 100 rupees worth of value, we're only producing 40 rupees, which is a massive sort of underutilization in a way. And in fact, if I just talk about underutilization, we're talking of more than $2 trillion worth of value just not being utilized. So that's a lot of sort of value just being left on the table, which can be unlocked. And this is where we come in at Faclon Labs. We're building the operating system of the physical world and we're really reimagining on how these factories are run and really complement these decision makers by data-driven decision making. When we digitize factories and we help them implement these decision agents, we're able to unlock a lot of value in multiple verticals. One, we're able to increase their productivity by more than 35%. The number seems big, but again, we are starting from 40% effectiveness. So there's a lot of runway to grow. We're able to reduce their operating costs by more than 20%. And not just that, we are able to increase the quality of products as well. It's not easy to digitize factories and deploy intelligence at scale. There are multiple challenges, but I want to talk about two major challenges. One is what we call as a factory heterogeneity problem. What that means is that every factory, every shop floor is fundamentally unique. In fact, factories producing same stuff also tend to have very different structures out there. Second, the insights consumption problem. Globally, there are different cultures by which people run their show. There are different processes, different KPIs, different metrics that they follow. So it's very difficult to have one platform which everybody can follow. Rather, the product has to speak the language of the customer. And these things make the adoption and delivery very difficult because we are talking of hyper customized intelligence and that too delivered at scale. And we're able to achieve this through a product stack which has four major pillars. We start with our data aggregation pillar where we become the universal data collector as well as the warehouse to start with. Then there is a non-contextual intelligence layer where we are building these insights out of the data that we have just warehoused. The third piece is this no-code dashboarding platform, which creates these hyper-customized touchpoints around dashboards, reports, workflows for the platform to now speak the language of the customer. And the last piece, or the cherry on the cake, is the contextual intelligence piece, where we now marry context and agents to give Bain-style recommendations on what is happening, observations, reports, etc. In India alone, we are working with all major industry leaders on across multiple verticals, proving that the product stack is scalable, and we're building more verticalizations around delivery or around domain expertise as we sort of co-develop with them. The next chapter starts in taking now this mature product to the right market, which is the US. And this is where we seek out to everyone in any form, in terms of mentor, in terms of advisor, in terms of investor, to really join us in our journey as we sort of reimagine the future of manufacturing.
I suspect that one of the challenges in manufacturing is that there's so many different kinds of manufacturing in different industries, right?
Yeah.
Analog, digital, horizontal, vertical. So process versus, chemicals are different than, watches, right?
Yeah.
So the question that, and it also ties back to your response about the 200 customers, is are you spread too thin? Do you need to pick one or two verticals, maybe one actually, beachhead, go very deep, specialize in that industry's specific manufacturing nuances, and only when you have mastered one vertical, you come out and look around other verticals.
100%.
So instead of going broad, can you go deep for a while, build a beachhead, and then come out and try to do a T model?
Couldn't agree more. So that's our story. So the thing is, when I talk about these are the logos we acquired, But focus customers are 48. Verticalization is much needed. But I'll give you a very interesting insight. Under the hood, it's all same. Because like I said,
Yeah,
factories are
that doesn't
huge.
matter.
the
We know that.
process
We
and
know
the
that.
Yeah.
It's very easy for all of us who have been engineers at some point in our life to say that beneath the hood, it's all the same. So let me go horizontal. But problem is, much of what we deliver is people who are buying from us are not engineers. They
Agreed.
want to see that in my industry, how many ones have you done? How big are those implementations? So
Yeah.
the story gets better and better in terms of reducing friction to sale when you go vertical.
100%. So that's a whole GTM game where you modularize. So basically, the way we think of, there are three sort of consolidations on narration. The best part are these verticalizations on sector. You're talking about steel, cement, pharmaceuticals, chemical. These are like, because we were too naive in these charts, so we worked with more people. Because we have so many lighthouse customers, we now have built a good expertise around these things. And the thing is, if you have 5 sectors, then you're talking of 400, 500 large companies, and you can build a $200 million sort of AR company. As soon as you focus on one, your total market reduces too much, which might cause a challenge going forward. But again, for us, these verticalizations help first on sales and much little on delivery, because the delivery literally happens. We are conversing with the customer stakeholders.
Yeah.
As they tell us what they need, we deliver it, because the platform allows us to be that nimble in terms of delivery.
There is a famous book called Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
everybody reads, right? So you
Yeah.
should read it again.
Yeah.
It'll change your outlook about how you're approaching it.
Sure, thank you. I'll do
Yeah.
that.
Thanks.
The environment around us in India, and the headline, it says transforming environmental governance in India. Why do we need to transform environmental governance in India? And what I've learned over time is the fact that we are a fractured society on various fault lines, and these fault lines are continuously exploited. We run businesses, we make profits, but these fault lines keep deepening. I did not know all of this 10 years ago, but about 10 years ago, I undertook a cycling journey from the east coast of India to the west coast, and it literally changed my life. Since then, I have been walking long rivers in India and walking across India, and the attempt has been to understand these fault lines, to understand the challenges that communities face, to understand the challenges that our ecosystems face. What it also told me doing these journeys over time is I was getting a slice of India that I had not imagined that I would ever see. And I was meeting a cross-section of people who I had never interacted with in my life, being from a city and I've studied in an English medium school, so there's a slice of society that I've never interacted with. But one other thing that really struck me, and this was when walking with Paul Salopek on the Out of Eden walk, that half the world is invisible to me. Based on a lot of these inputs, I realized that I needed to expand the lenses with which I was looking at the same horizon. And I started a fellowship program at my organization called Moving Upstream Fellowship. And as part of this fellowship, 23 fellows have actually walked thousands of kilometers along rivers in India, various rivers in India. And they have brought forth their own perspectives. Many of these fellows have changed jobs, quit jobs, started more sustainable businesses. They have moved into the environmental domain in India, and they're working. We have thesis projects at MIT. We have large Indian organizations focusing on rivers just because we were able to create information. But there's something else that it brought in, something very grainy that it brought in. Sand is the most mined mineral in the world. This again is something I did not know. This is something that I've learned by being along rivers and through the fellows that have walked rivers with me. This most mined mineral in the world, also in India, is a mineral that is extremely exploited. This is leading to an ecological crisis, but also to a tax crisis, to a financial crisis, where we're losing somewhere close to $8 to $10 billion, at least every year, in terms of tax revenue that is getting lost. And what we've done is we've started a project called India Sandwatch. This is in line with our idea of transforming environmental governance by bringing environmental accountability. And what we're doing through the project is protecting India's rivers through this destructive practice. And what we did is we took the problem, we created a framework to look at it called the Sites of Violence Framework. This is the framework. You can take a picture of it if you'd like to look at it later. But I'll tell you what you can do is you take any ecological problem, you apply a framework where you identify wherever violence is happening. And each of those points are also places of intervention. And then you must address your problem by looking at those sites of violence as sites of intervention. And that's what we did. We have an open data project at the heart of this problem, which we are using to address the data deficiency issue. Bad actors, unfortunately, are using the scales of space and the scales of time in order to continue exploitation. And what we are doing is by creating a public archive, an open data archive, you don't even need to log in to see all the material on the platform right now, is we're being able to lock time and space in which we're being able to respond to violence, in respond to corruption that's happening on the time and space scale. What we're also doing through the platform that we have and through the communities that we've built is we're being able to enable action by creating evidence at scale. On the right, what you see is the outputs from machine learning model that we've created with our partners at UC Berkeley, which can today tell you for a river at a particular time where all mining activity is happening. I'm very happy to tell you state agencies, judges of various high courts are actively using this. They are pursuing this for evidence to take action. Scams worth thousands of crores have been addressed using information that we've created. And we're hoping to take this further with two more actors. What's next is the same kind of imagination we've used to build this digital public good. We're using this to address more environmental and climate problems. So we're going to continue building that. We're going to work with more public actors and private actors. We're working with a whole system of actors in the ecosystem, and we're pushing all of them to openly share their data because the environmental sector anyways is very siloed. You can support us by joining us in our mission, and this is the ecosystem that we work with as of now, and we'd love to have you as part of our ecosystem as well.
Very inspiring. Thank you for that. This can also therefore be used for illegal logging of trees, the same kind of, you must have a lot of ideas by now as to what are some of the big ideas you want to pursue, addition to Sandwatch?
So two main next ideas that we want to pursue along with our partners. The first is, of course, compensatory afforestation and how is it happening, is it not happening? There's a whole scope because every day in the newspaper you will read there's 100 million trees that's been planted, 1 billion trees that's planted. It's all garbage. How do we monitor that? And
plus monoculture, no?
Plus monoculture. So we can actually monitor at scale. That's one. And the second is there's a tremendous issue of governance around floods in India. It's a huge issue, and with climate change, it's getting more and more erratic. So how do you look at flood governance? Because it's become so easy for a bureaucrat or a politician to say, oh, you know, this happened because of climate change. But no, sir, this has happened because of your ineptitude and the corruption in your system.
And this is entirely a non-profit model, right? You don't have any for-profit angles anywhere on this?
No, we are running this as a not-for-profit.
But is there any particular part that can eventually become for-profit?
It could, but I think the profit is in the planet. That's what I truly believe in, yeah.
Externalized costs, yeah.
So where's your next walk, along which river, and how can we participate?
So if you help me raise organizational funding for the next 3 years, I'll take you on a walk next year on a river that you want.
Okay.
Because honestly, I've walked so much, and in the past few years, I've been banging my head against the wall because it's a problem that not everybody understands, and I've just been trying to raise funds to keep doing this work, and I'm at that point where I'm like, you know what, let's get the money, and then we can go on a walk.
People like Terry and all won't give you money for this?
So the thing is, some of the topics we're touching disturbs the understood balance between the private and the public.
Yeah.
State actors are in collusion with non-state actors, and which is where a lot of the problem is. And because of all of our data is geo-referenced, we are able to make connections and build trends on where the bad actors are, because we actually work with good actors who are trying to take action. And I can't name them for obvious reasons, but we're seeing good actors take this up at many levels.
I feel like your impact is two-pronged, right? There seems to be what you're achieving through the walks, which is you're getting people to think about the environment and the world they live in differently. And you said that there are a bunch of people that have gone on to do, environment-related things. So there's something to that, and I hope that you cherish it and build on it. A couple of thoughts on the data side, right? One of the things that we've learned from community or open data projects is the need for getting the community itself that is affected to have more agency with respect to that data. So I hope that you're able to do that. So some of the funding is directed to getting the community to act or litigate even strategically in certain instances, etc. Second is the capacity which you've built, which is basically you are able to track, geotag, etc. is something of fundamental value for a range of things, ranging from like disease prevalence to like
Crop monitoring.
crops to, I think Shantanu asked the question of profit, for profit, etc. These might be points of leverage which allow you to fund what you really care about, which is this, sand mining or data driving change around sand mining, rivers, etc. So a thought, because this is a fundamental capacity that we as a society need, and a lot of impact organizations have different dimensions of that question. So that is one thing to think about. There's a second dimension to that tech part of it, which is that, at least in my understanding, impact organizations do very poorly in analyzing qualitative data, right? We as a part of Aapti, we do some work with video volunteers. It's a big struggle, 20,000 videos with incredible depth about some parts of the country, which there's no way to analyze unless, so is there a way to think about making those capacities available? Because there is value in it, right? How you choose to monetize it is up to you, but maybe these are other ways to, I dare say, subsidize the core of what you do.
I don't feel I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but I think I don't want to change my theory of change because certain people with money have a certain mindset. So I think I will continue to believe in the foundational principle of open, and that can actually drive change and drive other people to make change. And I think we are at a precipice where it's possible to make these fundamental models which can be adapted. And I think we had a conversation, wonderful conversation, where there was applicability of AI that was being discussed. And I think this is one of those examples where the energy requirement is also not very high. It's like contained within a use case. It's not like a free for all. But the hope is also to kindle an imagination within the Indian environmental space on that fact that this is possible, that we don't have to. People are very worried, and rightfully so in some cases, especially when you have to access protected areas and forests, and you really need the forest department permissions to go into areas. But beyond that, I think we are at that space where we have, as citizens, a huge amount of visibility into what's happening, and we can do a lot of sense making given the kind of technologies we have access to.
Thank you
Great.
so
Good
much.
luck.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Siddharth.
I think these are not just ideas. I think they've made significant progress. To me, I think this is the time where Inc. can play a role in terms of deep diving into each of these ideas. I kind of very clearly see there's a need for a technology coach for all of them and potentially a policy coach for all of them. I think apart from that, for each of the projects, in terms of where the team gaps are, funding can be both, grant-based or potentially some of them or venture capital or risk capital kind of financing. And what do I clearly need in terms of critical success factors to scale this to the next level? I think if that kind of thinking could be put in, I think these folks will go places, amazing kind of work. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I think that, first of all, highly educational for me as well. I think learned so much in the last hour and a half. I think the work that all of you are doing is just incredible. So round of applause once again for all of you. And for the fellows and the people who set up the Inc. Fellows,
Absolutely.
I think for all of you, this is really highly admirable. I think the way I see it is that it's kind of probably going to be really helpful to implement what we just heard from Sateesh. And I personally would also say that the fellows may just reflect on the session that happened today and decide if they want any one of us to play a role in giving them further thoughts. And if they choose on their own, that's better. Instead of, I don't believe in imposing mentors on people, but I think it's always easier to people to decide if they want any further help. I think on technology, there is clearly we can offer help. Some of the people I know also run CSR programs on environmental causes. At least 2 programs here would probably be interesting to qualify. But overall, I think I'm just completely bowled over by how fantastic this was. So thank you.
Yeah. So a lot of these things that you all talked about needs to have an inbuilt feedback loop where you're learning and unlearning all the time. Right? It has to be designed into the system. So if you don't have it, then you're going to learn in a very expensive way. So the more learnings that you build into the system, you're much better off.
I think I'm blown away and struggling to find the words to think about what there is to say about impact. But maybe the broader point is that very many of the organizations we saw today have multifocal points of impact. Siddharth, your work, Chandrasekhar, your work, like all of it has different ways in which there is that outcome achieved. So thinking a little bit more deeply about this networked impact is, I think, again, something we as a community should do a little bit more.